Mm. Good morning. Rise and shine. I'm a little tired. Yesterday was like a full busy day. Busy. I don't know what we have in store for us today. Good morning. I guess they're starting a little late today. A little late, a little early. But anyway, we're caught up with the trial. Yesterday we caught up. And I wonder what today is going to bring. What will today bring us? What witnesses will we have? I wonder how. I still am trying to kind of wondering how long is this trial going to be? John DeLee. Let me see here. Trial length. I don't know. I haven't really seen it. Let's see. What's up, Patty, Kitty, Aurora, Roberta, Grumpy, Ratifor? What's up, Borders girl? Kitty, Canadian grandma. Hola. Damn, Homer looking crazy in this thing, man. During a recent hearing, prosecutors requested that DeLee be required to testify at his trial. They want to ask DeLee. Wait, I just lost it. Damn it. That'd be dope if he has to testify. They want to ask DeLee if he heard a statement allegedly made the night of the shooting about whether the victim had any guns. At last check, the judge had not ruled on the request. Huh. Oh, but you know what? And I forgot. I think that was yesterday though. Today's Thursday. The jurors are expected to view the scene of the shooting Wednesday. Oh, maybe that's why they left early. Yeah, maybe today's a full day. Who knows? 2 weeks? That was too long. I guess it's not bad. Well, this is for stand your ground. This would be New Hampshire, though. I don't know if we could look that up. New Hampshire. Mm, 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 mm. And technically it was outside, but Oh, I haven't. I don't know. I unplugged it last night. I haven't turned it back on. I gotta plug it in today and see what happens. See if it works. Santa.
Well, the fallout from the George Zimmerman trial continues to reverberate across the country.
The U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder jumped into this controversy in a big way yesterday by telling states, including New Hampshire, they should rethink their laws when it comes to self-defense. The controversial Stand Your Ground law was not actually used in the Zimmerman case, but it has prompted some, including New Hampshire's new Attorney General, to call for a review of the 2-year-old statute. Seemingly surfing the wake of the George Zimmerman acquittal, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder takes aim at New Hampshire and more than 30 other states that carry Stand Your Ground.
It's time to question laws that senselessly expand the concept of self-defense.
Thanks, Urbear.
The Stand Your Ground law in New Hampshire is conservative relative to other states, allowing for the use of deadly force in a public place in self-defense or defense of another. But newly minted State Attorney General Joe Foster is making his position clear.
I think there were great concerns about the law. When I was a policymaker myself, I had concerns about it. I think it's a law that really ought to be looked at again, and I'd support the legislature to do that in due course.
This is sort of a knee-jerk reaction by the Attorney General.
Republican State Senator from Hooksett David Booten points to the failed effort to repeal Stand Your Ground in the last session as a reflection of the state's appetite to keep things as they are.
Elected representatives in New Hampshire and Washington, do your jobs.
Rallies at the State House.
Well, when is this from? The 1800s or something? What is this?
Representatives in New Hampshire and Washington, do your jobs.
Rallies at the State House earlier this year illustrated concern that the repeal of Stand Your Ground was really an attack on the Second Amendment. And Booten says despite the call from the Attorney General, nothing has changed.
You know, if he wants to have the legislature have another debate about it, then we're happy to do that.
So, New Hampshire currently has a Stand Your Ground law. Let's see here. Let me show you guys. Take a look at this. Late start today. New Hampshire is currently a Stand Your Ground law. This law regulates when and where New Hampshire citizens can use deadly force in self-defense. New Hampshire law allows the use of deadly force against another person in the following situations. When a person is about to use deadly force against you or someone else, if a person is likely to use unlawful force while committing a burglary, they're about to start. If a person is in the process of committing a kidnapping or forcible sex act, if a person is likely to use unlawful force.
Up the street.
Oh, whoa, what?
And where was this Old Granite Street?
Who's this?
Yes.
And was he walking from the area of the Goat towards the area of Soho?
Yes.
Where approximately was he in that distance when people were following him and yelling at him?
He was probably right in front of the Goat, about to be in front of Maker's Space. I'm not sure what that place is called. And the girls were like on the wall between the two businesses, and that's where it happened.
Okay. That's where he had the interaction with
Yes,
the girls, right?
yes.
But then you said there were people following him, right?
Yes.
Where was John when people were following him?
Same spot.
Okay. And did you ever see John use a gun at that point in front of the makerspace? What did you see him do?
I saw him take out a gun and put it into the air, and I heard a click.
Okay. And did he say anything at that time?
I believe he said next person that touches me is getting shot.
Okay. And then what did he do?
Continued walking up the street.
Okay. When he continued walking, so he didn't shoot the gun at that point, right?
No.
And did anybody say anything in response to that?
The group of gentlemen that were following him went across the street to the parking lot connected to Bank of America and got stopped by their cars, I presume, and yelled, "Oh, we have guns too."
Oh.
Okay. What were the exact words that they yelled?
We have guns too, pussy.
Okay. And who were they yelling that to?
John?
Oh, no.
And they were standing in the parking lot of the Bank of America, more or less? When they
Yes.
Where was John when this was being said to him?
Same spot between like the Go and Makers space.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a portion of what is State's Exhibit 65.
That's interesting. So, I mean, he's saying that they were yelling at John. They had guns too.
What I'll ask you to do, sir, is perhaps if you can get off the witness stand and I'm going to have you step over to that screen. Okay. And we're at approximately 2 minutes and 6 seconds into this video. Is that, you agree with that?
I guess.
Okay. And, sir, there are, you can see how there's a cam 3 and a cam 4, correct?
Yes.
And on cam 3, there's a person standing right here. There's two people on the sidewalk, and I'm pointing to the person on the left in the front of the screen. Who is that person?
Looks like me.
That's you, okay. And so, is it fair to say that you were almost directly in front of the shooting? I'm sorry, in front of the Soho right about the time that the shooting occurred?
Yes.
You can sit down, sir. And just a moment, Your Honor.
Man, that's a big deal.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Just 1 second, Mr.
Good morning, Mr. Enright.
How you doing?
I want to start off. So this happened about 10 months ago,
Yes.
and that night you spoke with a uniformed police officer,
Yes.
and that was right after this happened.
Yes.
In an hour or so. And you're aware he had a body-worn camera on,
Yes.
and you're aware there's a transcript made of that.
Yes.
Okay. And obviously this was 10 months ago, but just for purposes of the record, the comment about the guns, you had said that we all have guns too. the actual statement that you told police was, they're like, it's New Hampshire, we all have guns too, pussy, right?
Yes.
Does that sound more accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And your memory was probably better then than it is now, given that it was 10 months ago?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I just wanted to clear that up. So let's go back to the moment you come out of the goat. So you said the defendant's coming out of the goat, and he takes a right to go up the sidewalk.
Yes.
Okay. You said you heard screaming. Do you remember what? Was the defendant screaming, or was it other people screaming?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's okay. Did you hear somebody screaming, "Where you at, pussy bitch," as he walked out of the bar that night?
Yes.
Okay. Now, he comes up, takes that right out of the goat, starts walking up Soho. You said between the goat and between Manchester Makerspace, we have two groups of people following him or interacting with him, correct? We have this group of girls, and they were spitting at him?
Yes.
Okay. And you said one of them was actually taking a swing at him?
Yes.
Okay. This other group of gentlemen, you said there was 4. Have you in the past said that there was about 6 to 7 people following him at that point? Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. So a large group either way.
Yes.
Right. There's a lot of stuff going on in this moment. Okay. So a large group of males are following the defendant right after he goes out of the goat, correct? And
yes.
Sorry. And I talk quick. If I don't give you time to answer, talk over me.
Defense witness or
My
something?
apologies.
Oh.
Okay. So we have this large group of males, 6 to 7 males, following the defendant. And I didn't hear the exact word you used with defense, but fair to say that those 6 or 7 males were also taking swings at him?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do you remember speaking with the prosecution team on November 14th?
Yes.
23? Okay. Do you remember saying that the group of 6 to 7 men following the defendant were spitting at him and throwing swings at him?
Yes. I probably included the girls in that group.
Okay.
Because I assume they're all together.
Okay, so that whole group. But so the men were swinging at him or weren't swinging at him?
I don't recall.
Okay. Fair to say that group was harassing him?
Yes.
Okay, and that's clear from your perspective, right?
Yes.
There's no question in your mind that that group that's following him, and we're talking about before you see the gun, right? We're talking about between the goat and when you see the gun. This group is definitely harassing him.
Yes.
Okay, all right. You're on my approach?
Trisha Hilbers, thank you for the 8 months. Says good morning, Mel, and awesome chat. This is day 3, yeah. Kind of a little bit of an interesting twist.
I'm going to show you what's been entered
A little bit.
for identification as States Exhibit 73. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Have you seen this before?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just describe for us, does this reasonably and accurately reflect the layout of the bars, the street, the parking lot, and those locations that night?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would move to make this a full exhibit.
Sure.
I'm a little like, I guess it's the state. Oh, the availability. Oh, I think I should have said defense witness being brought in because of availability.
Mr. Enright, can you circle the goat, please? And just for the record, since it's audio, I'm just noting that it's a red Sharpie, okay? All right. Yeah. I'll wait for counsel. Okay. Now, you said defendant eventually pulls out a firearm.
So I think where you're standing, you're blocking some of the jurors so they can't see the witness. So.
you mind if I walk around that way? Make a better door. All right, Mr. Enright, you said that you eventually see the defendant, John DeLee, pull out a firearm.
Yes.
Correct. Then you said at that point, this group of 6 or 7 guys, they run straight across the street, correct?
Yes.
And they get to a car.
I don't know if they went to a car, but they didn't get into a car. I wasn't paying attention to them.
Okay, you had testified on the direct that they were over by a car.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Can you mark on that map what the area of that car was where they ran straight across? Okay. And so that's 6 or 7 guys that are by this red X. That's where they make. He said there were 6 or 7 guys by the red X. That's supposed to be testimony. He did.
Well, Claire, why don't you ask him?
Mr. Enright, I'll go back. I thought I covered this. That same group of 6 or 7 guys that were harassing him, after the defendant brandishes the firearm, they ran directly across the street, correct?
Right.
Okay. To the area where the red X is?
Correct.
Okay. The area of the red X, that's where this group of people, that's where they made this statement about, it's New Hampshire, we all have guns, pussy.
Yes.
Okay. They weren't walking up the street at that point.
No.
They didn't walk down the street at that point.
No.
So when he brandishes the gun, they beam straight across the street.
Yes.
Okay. Can I see this? Your Honor, state moves this to be a full exhibit.
Okay. Maybe the ID may be strict.
Your Honor, may I publish this to the jury?
Okay.
Good morning.
All right, let's move up to the Soho area. That was the video that we watched, the corner of that. Now, eventually, Timmy comes running up there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you see him punch the defendant shortly after that, right?
Yes.
Okay. That interaction that happens at the corner, and I'm talking in the split seconds beforehand, you thought there was going to be a fight?
Yes.
Okay. And there's back and forth, right?
Yes.
Okay. Both ways?
Yes.
Okay. No one looked like they were trying to leave?
No.
No one was screaming for help?
No.
No one was saying they were terrified?
No.
You didn't hear anyone threaten to kill anyone right then?
I wasn't close enough to hear the conversation.
Okay. The only time you heard somebody mention killing was when the defendant pulled out the gun the first time?
Yes.
Your Honor, I see there's nothing further.
When the gun, what was the exact statement that the defendant made when he pulled out the gun the first time?
I don't know the exact statement, but it was something along the lines of somebody, the next person that hits me is going to die, or is going to get shot.
Okay. He didn't say he was going to kill someone. He said, next person that touches me is going to get shot.
Right? I believe so, yes.
And in fact, when you were asking questions about Timothy walking up the street, right?
You're right.
And Timothy was having words with John, right?
Yes.
And you had a conversation with Timothy as he was walking up the street, right?
Briefly.
And you told him something, right?
Yes.
What did you tell him?
I said, that guy has a gun. That guy has a gun. I would not go near that.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Yes. So we just clarified. So there was a statement by the defendant, the next person that touches me, hits me, something to that effect,
correct,
is going to die.
Yes.
Fair to say the next person that you saw touch the defendant after this back and forth argument got killed?
Yes.
No further questions.
Okay, you can step down.
Okay, so they brought this witness in for the defense.
All right. And this witness is excused.
Because of
All right. You're free.
because I guess they had to, I don't know, do something. I guess because of limited timing, this person could only be here at this time. So they let him interject with this defense witness. Now they're gonna go back to the state. Java.
While you're seated, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There's water and there's a cup up there if you
Thank
need
you.
it.
Put that real quick.
There's also a microphone in front of you, so just be careful.
Gotcha.
And I'm just going to stay back here, so I'll let you know if I can't hear you for some reason.
Sounds
okay?
good.
So could you state your name and spell your first and last name for the record, please?
My name is Brian Delaney, BrianDelaney.
And where are you currently employed, Mr. Delaney?
The Goat in Manchester.
What's your job there?
Bouncer and bartender.
How long have you worked for the Goat?
About 2-3 years now.
And when did they open?
The Goat in Manchester opened 2 years ago.
So you've been there the whole time, pretty much?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you always been a bartender?
No, I used to just bounce when I first started.
And what are your responsibilities when you're a bouncer for the Goat?
Mostly just keeping the peace, checking IDs, making sure no fights break out.
And if fights did break out, what would your responsibility be in dealing with that?
It would be to split the two up, figure out what went down, then kick one or the other out, kick them both out if they were both at fault.
And I assume you're not working by yourself when you're doing this?
No, we had a pretty big crew, or have a pretty big crew, like 5-6 guys maybe.
Okay. Would you normally call the police, Manchester police, if a fight occurred like that?
No, we wouldn't.
So you normally break it up and kick everybody out?
Yeah, we just do it on our own.
So I'd like to turn your attention now to January 27th of 2023. Were you working at the Goat that night?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you working as a bouncer or a bartender?
Bouncer.
Do you remember when your shift started?
Started around 7 o'clock.
And what time would it have ended?
Probably around 1:32.
And is that around last call, or when does the bar?
Last call was at 12:45, and we cleared one out at 1:15.
So this was a Friday night in January. How busy was the Goat that night?
I'd say fairly busy. Not like the busiest night, but we had probably 200 to 300 people in there.
And do you remember if you had a police detail there that night?
We did.
Was that something that was there every night?
Every Friday, Saturday night, yes.
And what was your understanding of that person's responsibility?
Well, we started having those after it.
Hold on. Objection. Well, yeah, you want to just rephrase it.
Yeah. Were the police there essentially to back you up if there's a concern?
Yes.
Okay. Towards the end of your shift that night, did you witness an altercation at the bar?
Yes.
And do you remember where you were stationed at that time?
I do.
Okay, where was that?
Probably 15 feet away, 10 feet away from the altercation.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been entered as State's Exhibit 33. Have you seen this diagram before?
Yes.
Okay. And is this an overview, basically, of the Goat?
Yeah, it's like an aerial view.
Can you show us, if you don't mind coming down to where the larger TV is, can you show us where you were on this layout?
It was right here.
Okay. So where's the main bar area again, just to orient people?
This is the main bar.
Okay. And you're down in that kind of top of the diagram? Okay. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Can you describe for me what you saw or heard when you were?
I saw John and Timmy exchanging words.
So I'm going to stop you just for a second. When you say John, who are you referring to? And we have a record that's actually recording you, so I just need you to actually use your words to describe what you're saying. So that we
big man wearing the black suit.
Okay. Is he standing up right now?
Yes.
May the record just reflect that the witness has identified the defendant?
It will.
And when you say Timmy, can you describe who that is?
Little blonde man.
So where was Timmy when in this?
They were at the bar, John and Timmy, standing next to each other.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you just to talk up just a little bit.
Yep, sorry.
No, it's okay. Was there anybody else there that you knew, or just the two of them?
Sarah, girl.
And how do you know Sarah?
Just from working at the Goat. She used to come in a lot.
Did you know who she was with?
She was with Timmy.
So can you describe what you're seeing for an interaction between?
They were exchanging words, and it seemed to get not too friendly. Like they were pretty much kind of curse, talking shit. That's pretty much what they were doing.
Could you hear exactly what was being said, or just kind of the nature of it?
Just kind of demeanor. As a bouncer, I see this stuff all the time. When the stiff stuff starts to get a little more intense, I knew something wasn't so chill.
Okay. So as a bouncer, when you notice this, do you start paying more attention to it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And what did you see as you were kind of watching this interaction?
I saw that they were getting kind of, not aggressive, but it was starting to get a little too much, that something might break out, a fight. So I went over there and broke it up.
I'm going to show you a still from State's Exhibit 50. Meaning it's just a photo from there. Have you seen this photo before?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, do you see yourself in the photo?
I do.
Okay, where are you in this?
I'm right at the bottom.
Okay. And actually, if you don't mind walking back over to the big TV again, can you just point out where you are?
I'm right here.
Okay. And do you see where the defendant and Timmy are in that picture?
Yes, right here and here.
Okay. So Timmy's kind of in front of them?
Yeah.
Was this around this time frame? Is this about when you started noticing that something was going on?
Yeah, definitely. That's when I was something, they're starting to exchange some, words.
Okay. You go ahead and sit down. Thank you. So before you broke it up, did you see anything physical happen between the two of them? I know you've described the hearing words, but...
No, I didn't see anything physical. Just the signs of these guys aren't too friendly with each other.
Okay. And do you recall speaking with the police about this incident that happened pretty soon time after it happened?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember describing something to them that you had seen that was physical that happened between the defendant and Timmy?
Could you say that again? Sorry.
I didn't word that so well. Do you remember describing something that you had seen between the defendant and Timmy that was physical at that time?
I don't remember if I said something was physical or not.
Okay. Would it refresh your memory to see the report that the officer wrote about the conversation that you had?
Excuse me.
If I may approach you.
Of course.
So, Mr. Delaney, you said you remember speaking to the police officer that night? I'm sorry, not that, but shortly after it happened. And do you recall, right now, do you recall if you'd seen anything that was physical that happened between the defendant and Timmy prior to you intervening?
I think that there was a little something. I forget exactly.
Would it refresh your memory to see what the officer wrote about the conversation that you had with him?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to read a section just to yourself, not aloud.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take it back. I'm going to ask you if that refreshes your memory about what you saw at the bar.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you to start reading at the top of this paragraph right here, just to yourself.
Okay.
I'm going to take it back and ask you if that refreshes your memory.
Yeah, that does refresh me.
Does that refresh your memory? So can you tell me, what do you remember seeing between the defendant and Timmy before you intervened?
They started to get into it a little, and there was a little pushing and shoving going on, not much, and then that's when I went in and broke it up.
Okay. And do you recall who was pushing who at that point, or did you not see that clearly?
John was pushing Timmy.
So when you went in to break this up, what did you actually do? Was it physical or verbal? Or what do you?
Not really too physical, just I was standing like 10 feet away, just went over there and like broke them both up, took them both off to the side and pretty much said, cut the shit, like everyone's just trying to have fun.
So did you actually have a conversation with the defendant at that point?
Yes.
Right. And what was that conversation? What did you say to him?
It was along the lines of, how could you even be starting like anything with this kid? He's so small. I just didn't understand why there was tension between these two.
And how did the defendant respond to you?
He said that Timmy like called him something.
Do you remember what he said that Timmy called him?
I think he's called him a bitch.
How did you respond to that?
I was kind of like chuckled, like I'm like, how can someone that small like offend you in any way, really? Like I just didn't understand why there was, so kind of like little dog barking at the big dog. I didn't understand why, this was going on. Why he would take any offense to that.
What was the defendant's demeanor like when he was having this conversation with you?
We were both kind of laughing. Nothing serious, really.
Did he ever ask you for help anytime after this happened?
No.
Did he seem like he was scared of Timmy?
No.
Did he tell you he was scared of anybody else in the bar?
No.
What did the defendant do after this conversation that you had with him?
Pretty sure we just parted ways when we went down to the dance floor, if I remember correctly.
So at some point that night, did you again witness another altercation that was happening?
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe what you saw at that point?
Someone jumped up and punched John in the face.
And just to be clear, did you see the actual punch that started it, or what did you see from where you were?
I kind of saw the aftermath of it. So once it happened, I guess turned around and saw that there was like a little fight going on.
And how did you react when you saw that?
Just like any normal fight, just split them both up, kicked them out.
So were you one of the people that actually helped take them out of the bar?
At the start, yes. Yeah.
How many people were involved in from the go in bringing the defendant out of the bar?
It's like 3 bouncers and the cop detail officer that was there.
Once they were outside of the goat, what did you do?
Once we got him out of the goat, just go back to normal. Carry on with the night.
At some point after that, did you wind up going outside of the goat?
Yes.
And why did that happen? What was going on?
Me and one of the other bouncers heard there was some commotion going on up the street, so we ran from the goat up the street to see what was going on.
And when you say up the street, which direction are you running in from the goat?
Right up the street to the SNHU arena, up that road.
What did you see as you left the bar and started going up Old Granite Street?
Saw some commotion. Saw when I ran up there. Saw Timmy was down. I thought he was just like knocked out or something. I saw John just pretty much just walking away in the other direction, and everyone else kind of just like dispersing, running.
Okay. So when you say Timmy was down, what did you actually see as you were walking up towards him?
Well, I didn't hear anything. So when I first saw him, I just thought he maybe got when I got punched. He was just knocked out. So I thought he was unconscious on the ground.
Was there anyone with him at that time?
I think Sarah was on top of him.
This is the same Sarah that you said was with him in the bar?
Mm-hmm.
What was Sarah doing?
She was trying to give him CPR / revive him, which I was confused about. So I pulled her off, and that's when I knew he was shot.
That was the first point that you realized that?
Yeah.
You said that you saw where the defendant was. Can you describe again what he was doing when you saw him at this point?
It's pretty much just walking away, away from where Timmy was lying. Just casually walking.
And what direction was he walking in?
He was walking kind of towards the alley behind Soho, that restaurant right there.
Were you still there when the police arrived?
Yes.
Okay, what did you see?
I saw them run in, their guns pulled, and get John on the ground, arrest him.
You just have a moment, Your Honor.
No further questions at this time. Mr. DeLee, please answer the question.
Just a few questions, sir. After you broke up whatever happened between Timothy and John at the bar, you had the conversation with John, right?
Yes.
But you also had a conversation with Timothy, right?
Yes.
Well, today's day 3 so far. All right, kind of interesting. I'm curious what the defense is gonna have. I'm thinking Abby. I'm wondering if Abby's gonna be a defense witness. I don't know if the prosecution is gonna call her. That one witness we got a little snippet preview of from the defense. That was kind of interesting. The whole thing of him saying, I don't know if it's enough though, but him saying that supposedly Tim's people threatened, we got guns too. F boy, we got guns too, boy. They had to know this guy was carrying John. I mean, at least Tim's friends for sure knew. I mean, they had to have known. Good morning, rise and shine. Santa's not working. I'm going to try to unplug it and replug it again. I might have to mess around with it later. But if not, I'm gonna have to return Santa. I think what happened was too, I literally had it running for like 2 days straight. I think I just fell asleep the other night. I just left it running. And then last night when we were streaming, I heard like this weird sound behind me. It was like it just like locked up or something. Abby. Tim said he could beat you up. What are you gonna do something about that, John? Are you gonna have that slide or what? Are you a man? Are you a real man, John? You know, some woman amp it up and shit. You gonna let that slide? I cancel my Santa. I can't deal with his demise. On my conscience. Oh, so somebody, I forgot. Somebody messaged. Was it Mandy? Oh, no, so Mandy told me. Was it? I think it was Mandy, right? Did you send me an email about Chad Daybell? Chad Daybell, they're gonna have cameras. I think it's gonna be April 2024. Yeah, you got the email. April 2024. I'm wondering when is Harmony Montgomery, because I want to watch Harmony Montgomery too. That's supposed to be early next year. Check again. Harmony Montgomery. Hey, this next year is going to be a lot of interesting trials. Jury selection begins February 6th. So we should be able to, shouldn't get in the way of Chad's trial. So the Harmony Montgomery thing is kind of like an open and shut thing to me, though. I mean, I would think it is.
Just backing up, so make sure I'm asking the right question. Did you have a conversation with Timothy immediately after you had the conversation with John?
Yes.
And what was the conversation that you had with him? What did you say to him? What did you say to him?
It was along the lines of like, what are you doing? Why are you like talking shit with this huge kid? Like, I was confused why he would be participating in like the shit talk.
Did he give an explanation?
I go, yeah, like, what are you doing? He goes, don't worry, like, I do MMA.
You know what MMA is?
Mixed martial arts.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I need to give you a limiting instruction. So, sometimes evidence is admissible for one purpose and not another purpose.
Who said, who does MMA? They froze? What happened? Yeah, it's not me. I'm still here. You think he's gonna take a plea, Flossie? I think Montgomery's kind of open and shut. But, you know, Letitia was open and shut too. That was a really interesting and very emotional trial. I feel like we kind of have to cover that trial, Harmony, just because, you know, covered the story, just to see it through to the end. I don't know how long that trial is going to be, but damn. So Gabby Petito, the lawsuit is in May. Are they still having it? I thought, I don't know if they, I guess probably. I thought they kind of hugged it out and something. Not to say that it's not going to happen, but. All right, let me try refreshing this. I don't know what happened. Froze. Everybody's frozen there too. Lost the feed. This is like the B team on Law and Crime, C team. This morning was a weird start too, because there was like nothing, and out of nowhere, boom, it's a witness. I'm like, damn. We didn't even get the normal, you know, formalities of good morning, bring a jury in, all aboard. It's just boom. Amazing. DeLee over there said, I think it's self-defense. Somebody came like that at me, I'd pop them too.
Thank you.
All right, we're back. I heard him say something about MMA. Timmy does MMA? Is that what he was talking about? Damn. I don't know if they hugged it out, but they had an emotional moment, I thought, where they cried or something. I think they had discussions. Happy Life, thank you for the super chat. Morning, rise and shine. I had a rough start today, man. I couldn't. I really didn't want to get out of bed today to take the baby to school. I was like dragging. Yeah, that Harmony trial is going to be tough, probably. I think that'll be the second kid trial that we've covered, I believe. And we'll probably learn a whole bunch watching that trial, because even the Letitia one, even though it was kind of open and shut, we saw a whole bunch of stuff we didn't see before. All the video and interrogate, even though some of the audio was really bad, or some of the video was really bad.
At this point, and then we'll resume. We're going to break just for your sort of thinking purposes. We'll come back in about 5 to 7 minutes at the most, and then we'll break at noon, and then I have to take an extended lunch break because I have another hearing, or I have some other hearings that I have to deal with. So we're going to go take a break from 12 to 1:30, and then we'll resume the testimony. Okay.
12 to 1:30, huh? 1:30 is around the time I have to leave. But I'll just leave it running, I guess. I wonder if I should. What I'll probably do is maybe I'll end the stream at 12 and set it for 1:30. Start back up at 1:30. Maybe break it apart.
So principally for the media, but also for any of the other participants in the audience. The next witness is the medical examiner, and I anticipate there'll be a number of sensitive photographs, including autopsy photographs. So if you wish to excuse yourself, certainly please do that, but you're welcome to stay. But I did enter a protective order with respect to the media not photographing, distributing, broadcasting photographs of the autopsy photos. So if do not, they'll be displayed on the screen, but just don't record those. You can certainly record the testimony, but just not the actual photographs or any of those exhibits. Okay. All right, and we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Well, this judge did it right. At least he's very clear about it, telling them what's coming and not to do, whatever, for the media. Let's see if the poll works. I don't know.
Students, we are in just 5 minutes.
Manchester, a guy stabbed his mother and killed her, stabbed himself. He's in one of the hospitals in the police guard. My daughter is supposed to be x-raying him today. Bam. The poll says so far, and the first one is he's guilty. Second one is not guilty, self-defense. As far as I know, Timmy didn't have a gun. %72% say guilty. 28% say not guilty. Self-defense. Let's see what this is over here. So medical examiner next.
Amid last year's protests, some New Hampshire lawmakers saw video of highly charged situations involving vehicles surrounded by rioters or angry protesters. And while nothing like this happened here, they wanted to give people the legal right to respond with deadly force from their vehicle in a riot.
If you're allowed to use this type of force inside of your home, your car is it's still property, and you're inside your car, which is, I know it's not your home, but it's parallel.
Debate in committee hung up on the potential for nonviolent protesters to be shot, so all language related to rioting was removed. The result essentially puts the Stand Your Ground law on wheels.
We've been spending a lot of time talking about protests, but much more common in this state are incidents of road rage.
Opponents say get ready for legally justified road rage shootouts if this bill becomes law.
One of the things that I'm very concerned about is that, an act of simple assault combined with a little bit of stupidity could increasingly become, an action that gets people killed. And with this law, it would make it lawful in some of these cases to do that.
It was a purely partisan split on this bill in committee. Republicans in favor, Democrats opposed. With a narrow GOP majority in the House this year, attendance at this week's full session, who shows up, is likely to decide if this advances to the state Senate.
I don't care where you go. I don't care what state you visit. I don't care what county you're in. You should never, under any circumstances, lose your right to protect yourself or to protect your loved ones. Period. That's it.
In Concord, Adam Sexton, WMUR, News 9.
Let's see something else too. The train don't stop. Oh, I wanted to show you something actually. Some people might remember this. I think this guy got acquitted too. This shit was nuts. Let's see if I can find it. Hey, check this out.
Right now at 5:30 and only on 10, charges have been dropped against this guy who was recorded by his own dash cam opening fire on another driver on I-95. The defendant has maintained he thought he was being shot at, and that's why he grabbed his gun.
Today, that Stand Your
Florida's loose, though. Florida loose. You can pull off all kinds of stuff, Florida.
Ground defense led to all charges being dismissed. Lieutenant Janine Stanwood is live with that one and only exclusive. Janine.
Florida Highway Patrol says the other driver had actually thrown a water bottle toward Eric Popper, but you said it. He has maintained the whole time that was gunfire, and now the charges against him have been dropped.
Water bottle self-defense, man. So we got the popcorn self-defense that happened in Upper Florida. Some guy got popcorn thrown at him, so the old guy shoots the guy and kills him, and he thought his life was under threat, so he was able to kill him and get away with it. And this guy, check this. Oh, let me run a little bit.
Gunfire, and now the charges against him have been dropped.
By the way, nobody gets hurt in this. Nobody dies.
This chilling video made national headlines. The man firing out the window, Eric Popper, faced charges including...
And his name was Eric Popper.
aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
I'm very relieved. I believe that justice was served.
But now he's speaking to us as prosecutors dismiss those charges.
It's been a long process. It's been almost 2 years.
Happened in June of 2021. According to Florida Highway Patrol, Popper was behind the wheel of this black Toyota Venza when he cuts off another driver. That driver starts tailgating. Popper slams the brakes. Troopers say the other driver then hurls a water bottle. Popper maintains it was gunfire.
I've watched the video many times. Did not see a water bottle.
I think under the stand your ground law, Mr. Popper was perfectly reasonable and justified in his actions. There is no question when you look and listen to the facts of the case, Mr. Popper was shot at.
We asked Popper if he had any regrets.
Hindsight's 20/20. There's always things that we can look back and say we wish we would have done differently. Definitely what I would have done would be not to pump my brakes. I would have taken another tactic or, definitely tried to de-escalate.
I wonder if that person that was chasing him and tailgating him, that's the last time they did that. I wonder if they still have road rage, or did being shot at change their perspective on driving, calm their ass down and shit, I don't know. The ball is just firing off. %74% say he's guilty. Eric Popper.
Popper was
somebody say, who's this guy's lawyer? Everyone needs him. Eric Popper. He did. He pulled out his gun and was waiting for the guy. I know this guy said it was in self-defense, but he did pull out his gun. He was waiting for him to pull up on him.
Ready to call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Dr. Mitchell Weinberg.
Good morning. Before you're seated, if you could just raise your right hand.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat.
Morning, Dr. Weinberg.
Good morning.
There's water there for you if you
Thank
need
you.
it. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, Mitchell Weinberg, W-E-I-N-B-E-R-G.
And where are you currently employed, Doctor?
I'm employed at the New Hampshire Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, which is in Concord.
I'll give you a minute if you want to.
Thank you.
And what's your position at the Office of the Medical Examiner?
I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner in the office, which means I'm one of the forensic pathologists.
Can you explain what the duties are that are associated with that position?
Well, there's a number of different duties associated with my job, but the main one is what folks actually do tend to think of when they think of forensic pathology. One of my primary job duties is performing postmortem examinations. Generally, that means a full forensic autopsy for the purposes of determining a patient's cause and manner of death. And then there's all sorts of other job tasks that I have, educational, administrative, but those aren't so germane here, so I don't need to talk about them.
How long have you been in your current position?
I've been with the New Hampshire office about 3.5 years now.
Did you work as a forensic pathologist before that?
Yes, I did.
Where was that?
In Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I worked there from 2012 until 2020.
Do you have any specialized education training that relates to this field?
Yes, of course. To become a forensic pathologist, one goes to university to get a bachelor's degree in something. Mine is in microbiology. I did that at the University of Florida. And then one goes to medical school. because I am a physician. I did my medical school at the University of South Florida, completing that in 2008. Then, after medical school, one needs to do a general residency in anatomic pathology, and I did that at Ohio State University. The way I did it was a 3-year course of study, so I finished that in 2011. And then to become a forensic pathologist in North America, you have to do what's called a fellowship or subspecialty training. And that's when you really learn the nuts and bolts of becoming a forensic pathologist. I did that in Baltimore, Maryland, with the Maryland Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. And at that time, I had finished all of my training, all of my schooling. I was finally competent and ready to enter the workforce as a forensic pathologist. And then I took the job in Canada.
And so you're board certified?
Yes, I'm board certified by the American Board of Pathology in anatomic and forensic pathology.
Approximately how many autopsies do you believe you performed?
At this stage of my career, it's probably somewhere in the 2,200 ballpark.
You've referenced this, but what is an autopsy?
An autopsy is a surgical type procedure. It's not surgery, certainly not in the same sense that a surgeon performs surgery on a living patient, but it's a surgical type procedure of a deceased individual for the purposes of documenting things like injury, the presence or absence thereof, natural disease processes, again, the absence or natural thereof, and then identifying features and demographic type information like hair color, height, weight, and that kind of thing. Again, for the primary purpose of determining that patient's cause and manner of death. That is sort of the ultimate work product that I produce for each case that I'm involved in.
And what is specifically meant in your field by cause and manner of death?
So the cause of death for any given patient is the disease process, injury, or substance toxicity that ultimately leads to a patient's death, no matter how short a time interval or how long a time interval. So examples would be things like metastatic pancreatic cancer. It could be blunt force trauma sustained in a motor vehicle incident. It could be stab wounds, either self-inflicted or inflicted by another person, or it could be gunshot wound trauma, again, inflicted by oneself, making the death a suicide, or inflicted by another individual, making the manner of death homicide. And you asked about manner. That's the other one of the other big things that I do. The manner of death is a classification that I assign as a medical examiner relating to the circumstances of a patient's death. I only have 5 choices for manner of death, whereas cause of death, I can say essentially anything. It's free text. But manner of death is either natural, so a death due solely to natural disease processes, suicide, a death due to self-inflicted injury of some sort, homicide, death due to injury caused by some other person, or accident, a non-natural death where it wasn't quote-unquote intentional. And then in a small percentage of cases, for reasons that aren't really worth getting into here today, I have another option of an undetermined manner of death.
So just to be clear, if you make a determination of homicide, for example, that's not a legal definition, that's a medical definition?
No, I am a doctor, not a lawyer, and my classification is for my purposes of classifying the death. It is not a statement of legality or lack thereof. That is for entities such as a court.
Have you testified in court before in the area of forensic pathology?
Yes, many times.
Do you have any estimate of how many times?
It's probably in the ballpark of 100 at this point in my career.
And has this been in multiple courts?
Yes.
Have you previously been qualified as an expert in the area of forensic pathology?
Yes, I have.
At this time, I'd ask that the court recognize Dr. Weinberg to be qualified as an expert under Rule 702.
He may offer his opinions.
So I'd like to turn your attention now to January 29th of 2023. Did you perform an autopsy on the body of Timothy Pouliot?
Yes, I did.
And as part of your autopsy process, do you prepare a report?
Yes, I do.
Along with the written portion of your report, do you include photos and diagrams?
In some cases, yes. If I think it is necessary or illustrative, I will include a diagram as an attachment to the text of the autopsy report, and photographs are taken in virtually every case.
And about how many photographs did you take in this case?
In this case, I went back and looked, and I believe the number is 155.
Were there detectives present for this autopsy?
Yes, there were.
And did they take photographs as well?
I think so, but I'm honestly not 100% sure. They probably did. That would be very standard practice.
And is there standard practice that they take photographs throughout the process that you are doing at the same time that you are?
Generally, different detectives have differing levels of experience, and some need more or less guidance from me about what photos to take. Generally, they kind of just follow right behind me, and if I take a photo, they know it's something of relevance, and they tend to do so themselves.
Did you also do a diagram? You said sometimes you do or don't do diagrams. In this particular case, did you do a diagram?
Yes, I did. Well, I guess I want to be clear. So when I say a diagram here, I mean a formal diagram that is meant to be attached to the actual autopsy report. In every case, I have little diagrams that I'm taking my notes on for the purposes of creating my autopsy report, but in not every case do I create an actual diagram as part of the autopsy report. I tend to do it in cases involving what I call as a forensic pathologist penetrating trauma, things like gunshot wounds or stab wounds, just because they tend to be illustrative to the reader of where those injuries are on a body.
And so in this particular case, did you create this more formal diagram that you're referring to?
Yes, I did.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
Okay.
The state moves to strike the ID on these photographs. Actually,
What numbers?
specific.
Yeah.
So it states Exhibit 36 through states Exhibit 42.
Okay. 36 through 42, the IDs may be stricken.
Dr. Weinberg, now that these are full exhibits, I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to publish now what's State's Exhibit 36, which I believe you previously identified as being this formal diagram that you drew. I'm sorry, created, I should say it's more.
Sure.
So, first of all, do you recognize this as being the diagram that you included with your report with regard to Mr. Pouliot's autopsy?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you describe for the jury what this diagram shows and what its purpose is for you?
Yes, so this diagram has a sort of generic adult male figure standing in what I call the standard anatomic position, with the hands down to the side and the palms facing out. That's because that is the standard with which penetrating injuries are described by forensic pathologists in North America. And So in this particular diagram, I decided I didn't want it to get overly complex and overly annotated. So I've just listed with numbers that correspond to numbers in the text of my autopsy report, locations of what I determined to be entry gunshot wounds, and actually, well, including one re-entry wound.
Okay. And actually, you had captioned, I believe it's small writing here, but entry gunshot wounds at the top of this diagram, correct? Okay. So you've used numbers on this diagram to indicate different locations of these entry wounds? Do the numbers reflect an order in which you believe the wounds were inflicted?
No, they do not. No. The numbering is honestly pretty arbitrary. It's somewhat based on just the order in which I see and start documenting in my report. The numbering is a method for me to organize things, and I want to be very clear, it does not reflect anything about the severity of a particular injury, nor of the order in which the gunshot wounds were sustained. It's for organizational purposes.
And so to be clear, in this case, were you able to make a determination about the order in which the wounds were inflicted?
No, not really. There's one wound where there's primary entry on an extremity and then re-entry into the torso, and I can tell that that's a single wound path and that the extremity was struck first. But aside from that, the overall order of the gunshot wounds, no, I do not have a way to make any determination about that.
So you've described these as entry wounds. How are you able to tell the difference between an entry and an exit wound?
The simple answer is they generally look different. This is why you have all the schooling and the training and the experience. Entry wounds entry gunshot wounds, that is, tend to have a circular or slightly ovoid type of appearance. They're sort of punched out because the tissue is actually disrupted and taken away by the projectile. Very often, an entry wound will have something called a marginal abrasion, which is just a thin rim of abrasion around that wound edge. And in contrast, exit wounds tend to be more slit-like. They can be reapproximated because the tissue isn't physically gone the way it is. And so the vast majority of the time when I am evaluating gunshot wounds, it is pretty straightforward for me to distinguish what is an entry and what is an exit wound.
I'm going to ask if you could come down and approach the diagram that's there. And can you just walk us through, again, since we're dealing with a black and white diagram, what this diagram is showing in terms of where the actual entry wounds are that you observed?
Sure. I guess in what sense are you asking?
If you could just indicate for us, we're seeing numbers on there, but could you just point it out for the jury, I guess, where you were actually seeing, and there's actually one on there marked re-entry wound, so if you could just explain the difference for us.
Okay, so most of these numbers are simply the numbers that correspond to the text of my report of where the entry wound for a particular gunshot wound is located. So with any gunshot wound, there is, by definition, going to be an entry somewhere on the body, and then either the bullet exits, and there's a corresponding exit wound, which I did not put on this diagram to not overly complicate it, or there's a retained projectile. That's basically accurate. There's some slight exceptions that aren't worth getting into, and they're not applicable in this particular case. So these are only the locations of the entry wounds on Mr. Pouliot's body that I observed. So this is the right arm, there's a wound here, front of the left shoulder, there's one. This one here, and this is meant to correspond to kind of the upper left flank or armpit area. This is the one that is a re-entry wound, and I believe that pairs with this entry, number 7. So this is a wound that went through the upper left arm. The bullet exits the body through the left arm, but then because of the positioning, it then re-entered the body in the torso. And that kind of thing with re-entry gunshot wounds can happen when the initial entry is to an extremity. So we do see that sometimes as forensic pathologists. But in this case, I'm very confident that it's a single gunshot wound path. And then on this other side are more entry wounds. Here, one on the left side of the back, one on the right side of the back, two kind of on the very low back or upper right buttocks region. And I believe there may be one more, although I might not have put that on the diagram to the right hand. Oh, I did. There it is. That letter B is a graze type wound to the right hand.
Thank you.
Oh, that's helpful.
So, Dr. Weinberg, you had discussed the fact that there were hundreds of photos that were taken during this autopsy. I'm not going to have you go through all of those, but there are a few that I would like to have you explain for us.
Sure.
So I am going to show State's Exhibit 37, which is going to show us one of these, and this is referring to wound number 9, or on the diagram, I believe you also have it as C in your report. So can you explain to us, we're seeing a lot of different numbers in this photo. Can you explain to us what we're seeing here?
So these different numbers correspond to just different wound numbers that I assigned. As I'm going through the exam, I start identifying defects and or wounds, and I start numbering them so that I can document them and get things organized. When there are multiple gunshot wounds, it's kind of a process that the pathologist goes through during the course of the examination. You determine what's an entry wound and what's an exit wound, and then for entry-exit wounds, you either have to pair them or you pair a retained bullet to an entry wound. So in this particular photograph, you can see there's a fair bit of injury to this region of Mr. Pouliot's body, right? So I think it's pretty obvious that we're looking at his left upper extremity and the left side of his chest in front of the shoulder region. And there are multiple wounds that are visible here. Some are entry, some are exit. Yes, that's what we're seeing here. And I think it shows, although not as well as I would have hoped so, like the 3 and the 1 are actually an 11 and a 13, because just we don't have numbers that go up that high, so I just hand wrote in, show that it's an 11 and a 13 for my numbering purposes. That's all that is.
So you can actually almost see there's a ballpoint pen or something.
Yes, that's literally me writing it with my pen. So a lot of injury to this region of the patient's body.
So if we're looking at wound number 9 as it's marked on here, which is an entry wound, does it have a corresponding exit wound that you located?
So at this time, I should probably ask if I may refer to my own autopsy report to make sure that I'm getting these details correct for questioning purposes.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Wound 9. Yes, wound 9 does have a corresponding exit wound. It's not in the diagram, but it is visible in this photograph as the wound just below the sticker with the 8 on it. So the 9 and the 8, those wounds connect to each other as a through-and-through wound.
So can you explain the purpose of the metal rod that we're seeing in this photo?
Yes, the purpose of the metal rod is to help me, the pathologist, identify where wound paths are going, and it helps me determine what wound pairs with what retained projectile or what exit wound. I don't want to guess. This is how we do it. We take probes and we follow wound paths inside the body that have been made by a gunshot wound, by a bullet as it passes through the body.
Is it fair to say that that rod helps you map the trajectory within the body of where the bullet has passed?
Yes, that's a decent way to phrase it.
So were you able to determine what type of damage was caused by wound 9?
Yes, this gunshot wound injures muscles in the arm as well as the left humerus, which is the arm bone.
And obviously a serious injury. If this was the only gunshot wound that Timothy Pouliot had received, and he received immediate medical attention, would you expect this type of injury to be survivable?
Yes.
We can also see gunshot wounds in this photo labeled, I think you started explaining this, but it appears 3, 10, and 11, given I understand the numbers are a little difficult. Are those entry or exit wounds?
The 13 is re-entry. So that's not 3, that's the 13.
Sorry,
and that's re-entry, I believe. Yes. 10 and 11 are exit wounds.
And you've explained to us how you can tell that difference in your examination?
Yes.
Are you able to tell a trajectory in terms of upward or downward or left or right in a particular bullet, or can you explain that process to us?
You mean with the wound we're talking about in particular? Yes, for every gunshot wound that I document, I do document the directionality in 3 axes, but to be clear, that directionality is given with respect to that anatomic position that you saw in the diagram. So, to be clear, from my examination, there's relatively little that I can say about an individual's position at the time he sustained those particular gunshot wounds. So, especially when you're talking about extremity wounds, when you're talking about extremities, which can move very, very freely, directionality may or may not actually mean all that much in the real world. But yes, for every gunshot wound, I do give a directionality. It's just a matter of how much it might actually mean based on the circumstances.
Okay. So, for example, it would be different if a person's standing straight up versus if they are laying down when they are shot, in terms of what that directionality means?
Well, no, I will describe the directionality with respect to that standard anatomic position of the patient standing up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the true direction that the bullet traveled, because, for example, if I had a wound path that went, say, from the shoulder and then out the lower back, I would describe it as a very downward wound path. But if the individual was leaning forward when that gunshot wound was sustained, right, that tells you something different about how the bullet actually traveled. I don't feel like I'm explaining this very well, but I guess what I want the jury to understand is the wound directionality I describe is somewhat divorced, because I can't say with certainty what position an individual was in when those wounds were sustained.
So you're describing it in terms of, yes, from their own body.
Yes, yes. So wound path is described as being up or down, left or right, and front or back, those 3 axes.
So with regard to this particular wound, this entry at 9 and exiting 8, what was the direction noted?
The directionality for this wound path is front to back, right to left, and downward.
All right, I'm going to show you another photo, and this relates to wound number 6, or I believe you had it as A.
Okay.
And can you explain to us this wound and what you were able to determine about its path?
Yes, wound 6 is on the front of Mr. Pouliot's right arm. This is very clearly an entry wound, both from its appearance and from the fact that it is associated with a retained bullet, so there's no exit wound associated with this particular wound. This is a pretty superficial injury from a pathology perspective. It injures some muscles, but it doesn't even injure the bone. So this, too, is a relatively minor injury. I recovered the bullet and turned that over to law enforcement as evidence, as is standard.
And so if this, as we discussed with the other one, if this had been the only gunshot wound that Timothy Pouliot received, especially with immediate medical attention, would that be a survivable injury?
Yes.
So we've been talking about the 2 locations where Timothy Pouliot was shot in the front. I want to ask you now about some of the locations where he was shot in the back.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you about wound number 4, where you have it as G.
Okay.
So I'm showing you States Exhibit 40. You can see a number of different wounds in this photo. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. With regard to wound number 4, can you explain to us what you were able to determine about this wound?
Yes, wound 4 is the entry site is the very low right side of the back or upper buttocks region, kind of the border between those 2 body regions. This particular wound does go in and injure intra-abdominal structures such as the intestines, the stomach, the spleen, and then ultimately the bullet is just beneath the skin in Mr. Pouliot's left flank. So this is a little bit more serious injury than the 2 we've talked about thus far.
And you said that this is a more serious injury. If somebody sustained this injury, what would you expect for a prognosis by itself with current medical treatment?
With current medical treatment, so there was nothing with this injury that would be immediately life-threatening. So if the patient were able to get to a hospital pretty quickly, the patient would be assessed by emergency doctors and surgeons. I'm not a clinician, so I don't want to go too far down this road, but this likely would have required intra-abdominal surgery to correct some of the injured organs like the intestines and the stomach. However, I am confident saying to this court that with modern medical care, this is something that should have been survivable.
So I'm going to ask you next about wound number 5. Which is, H in your report.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at the same photo again. This is States Exhibit 40. Is it documented in here, or flagged in here as well, in this photograph?
Yes. So entry wound 5 is just slightly below entry or wound 4, also on the upper right buttocks region.
Okay. And can you tell us what the damage was that you observed that was caused by that bullet?
Yes, this gunshot wound is fairly similar to the one we just talked about in that it also enters the abdominal cavity. It injures the intestines a couple of times, just because of the way the bowel loops. That's pretty common. And this one also is associated with a retained bullet, which I recovered and turned over to law enforcement as evidence. Similar to what I said with the last wound, nothing immediately life-threatening, no large blood vessels that were injured, and with modern medical and surgical care, I would expect this to be a survivable injury.
So I'm going to ask you next about wound B. You had indicated for us on the diagram that related to Timothy Pouliot's hand. I'm going to show you States Exhibit 42.
Okay.
Can you explain what we're looking at in this photograph?
This is injury to Mr. Pouliot's right hand, specifically the fourth and fifth fingers, from a grazed gunshot wound. So this is where the bullet just barely makes contact with the body. It doesn't truly enter or exit, it just grazes it. And this, of course, is not a life-threatening injury.
So I want to ask you now about wound number 7, or D, that you have in your report.
Okay.
And I'm going to be showing you 2 photographs together and ask you, you had talked about this idea of showing an entry wound, then an exit wound, a re-entry, and a re-exit. I believe this was the bullet that had that trajectory.
Correct.
So could you, I'm going to show you States Exhibit 37 and 39 together. Can you explain to us what we're seeing here in terms of the trajectory that this bullet took?
Yes. Is this? No, it's not a pointer. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think we.
It's okay.
I don't mind coming down.
Okay. I just want to make sure the jury understands on this one. So, with this particular gunshot wound, the initial contact with Mr. Pouliot's body is here. So, kind of back of the left shoulder, general region. It passes through the upper left arm. Exits here, so this is Mr. Pouliot's left armpit. Exits here, and then travels a very, very short distance to re-enter the body on the very upper left flank. Again, sort of called the armpit region. Then re-enters the body in the torso, where the wound path continues and does cause injury to some significant anatomic structures in Mr. Pouliot's chest.
And which were those structures that were injured by this bullet?
So there was injury to some of the ribs in the left upper flank, but more significantly, the left lung was injured by this gunshot wound. And that resulted in bleeding into the left chest cavity, something that's medically called hemothorax, but that is an abnormal or pathologic accumulation of blood in the chest cavity. In part because of this gunshot wound. There were multiple gunshot wounds that ultimately contributed to the blood in the left side of the chest.
This is one of them.
This is one of them, correct.
I'm going to show you now States Exhibit 40. This show you where that bullet exited after.
Yes.
Where did that bullet exit?
The
wound
with the number 3 by it is the exit wound for the wound that we've been talking about for the last couple of minutes.
So you've talked about how serious the nature of that particular bullet was, where it passed through the body. Is that a life-threatening injury?
Yes.
What you observed in the body. I want to ask you now about wound number 2, or E. I'm going to show you States Exhibits 40 and 41 together.
Okay.
Can you see the entrance and the exit of this wound that you were able to identify?
Yes, the entry is on the left side of the upper back, kind of below the shoulder blade.
I'm sorry to make you walk up, but do you mind just walking over and just showing us?
So, the wound with the number 2 by it. That's the entry that we're talking about now.
And were you able to identify where it exited the body?
Yes. This bullet traveled through the chest, and ultimately I figured out that it connects with this wound here. That, again, excuse my very bad artistic skills, but that's supposed to be an 11. Wound 11. That's the exit wound that corresponds with this entry wound, and so it should be, I think, pretty clear that that bullet would have passed through the chest, and again, caused injury to important anatomic structures in the chest, specifically, again, the left lung. So this wound also contributes to that left-sided hemothorax, or blood accumulation in the left side of the chest cavity.
So, again, another serious injury that you're describing, is the injury caused by this bullet life-threatening?
Yes.
And then I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about one last injury, one last wound, number 1, or F, that also entered in the back. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 40 and 41. So if you can show us where the entrance and the exit of this wound are.
So now we're talking about this entry wound on the right side of the back with the number 1 by it. And this, I determined, ultimately corresponded with exit wound number 10. Also to the front of the left shoulder, left upper chest region. And so with this wound path, you can see that it crosses from the right side of the chest to the left side of the chest. And again, as a result of the bullet passing through the body, there is injury to the right lung, the aorta, which is the very largest blood vessel in the body that takes blood from the heart and ultimately to pretty much the entire body. So injury to the aorta is very, very serious. And also strikes the left lung as well prior to exiting. So this wound is associated with over 1 liter of blood in the right side of the chest, and it also contributes to the bleeding into the left side of the chest.
So I think you've characterized it, but this is clearly a life-threatening wound as well.
Yes, this is a wound that I would expect to be very quickly life-threatening.
And so, in terms of that time frame, is this a wound that even if somebody is receiving immediate medical attention, you would expect could be life-threatening by itself?
Yes, I would agree with that statement.
So I'm going to show you your diagram again, and on this, I've circled these 3 gunshot wounds that you've described. So number 1, number 2, and number 7 that are all in the back. What was the overall impact of these 3 gunshot wounds that involved the back of the upper torso?
The collective injury from these 3 gunshot wounds was definitely the most physiologically significant contributor to Mr. Pouliot's death. These are the gunshot wounds that injure the most critical structures, namely both lungs and the aorta, and they are collectively responsible for almost 2 liters of blood into the chest. And I guess I need to give some reference for that. An average-sized adult male has approximately 5 liters of total blood volume. And so to have approximately 40%, or maybe a little bit less due to Mr. Pouliot's size, of the blood volume lost rapidly due to injury into the chest cavities is a very quickly life-threatening type of situation.
And I'm going to show you your diagram again. And now we're looking at wounds 6 and 9, which were the 2 that were in the front. If Mr. Pouliot had only sustained those 2 front injuries, would you have expected that to be fatal?
No.
At this back.
At the beginning, you were talking to us a little bit about cause and manner of death, that's one of the primary purposes that you have for conducting the autopsy. In this case, what did you determine regarding the cause and manner of Timothy Pouliot's death?
I determined his cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds and the manner of death as homicide.
I just have another question for you. Were you, as part of your documentation of Mr. Pouliot, did you determine his height and weight?
Yes, that's a standard part of every postmortem exam that I perform.
And what were those?
So Mr. Pouliot was 67 inches in height, so 5'7" or 170 centimeters, with a weight of 121 pounds or 55 kilograms.
Let me have a moment. State has no further questions. Dr. Weinberg, defense may have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Grill him. Shake him up. I'm not sure. Shake his ass up. Oh, he's done? Did I have nothing for him? Oh, okay. So I was able to fix Santa. I completely took him off the ladder, and I manually rotated his legs, made him, and then it started working. And I think what actually happened was that the Christmas lights got tangled in him, and it caused like some type of issue.
So we're going to go about 15 more minutes, start the next witness.
Mama's coming over later. Up on Maddie's here. This place is, I gotta do some cleaning to this place, kind of trashed. Cleaning later today. I wonder if they're running a whole day today.
Yeah, you want to state would call Detective Morgan Lovejoy. Thank you.
Detective, another detective. Oh. Everybody's asking about the Christmas tree. I've been getting messages, DMs. Been getting some guys complaining to me that their wives are making them buy this shit now.
The testimony we're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. That's right.
Detective Lovejoy, if you can just state and spell your last name for the record.
Morgan Lovejoy, Lovejoy.
And where do you work, Detective Lovejoy?
Manchester Police Department in the city of Manchester.
And how long have you worked there?
Almost 15 and a half years.
And what did you do before that?
I was an elementary school teacher here in Manchester.
A little bit of different work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Specific to Manchester PD, what's your assignment with Manchester?
I'm a detective sergeant in the investigations division.
And were you a detective sergeant in investigative division back in January of 2023?
Yes, I was.
And what type of cases fall within your supervisory capacity?
Anything from thefts and burglaries all the way up to robberies, stabbing, shootings, homicides.
And as a detective sergeant, what's your role?
I typically help oversee those cases. I'm not a lead investigator. I'm not physically on the ground collecting video or doing crime scenes or interviews, but I'm kind of behind the scenes just helping run the investigation from inside the PD.
Answering questions if they come up.
Yes.
Make sure they have resources.
Yes.
Like that.
Yep.
Okay. I want to take you back to Saturday, January 28th, 2023. Were you assigned as a detective sergeant on the investigation into the shooting of Timothy Pouliot?
Yes, I was.
And as part of your role, have you reviewed some of that surveillance footage that was collected by investigating officers?
Yes, I have.
What video recordings and surveillance footage were you able to review?
Quite a few from out there. There was inside the goat. There was cell phone video taken by a bystander from inside the goat. Cell phone video from outside on Old Granite Street. 20 Old Granite Street, 36 Old Granite Street, 54 Old Granite Street, 64 Old Granite Street, and across the street at the Southern New Hampshire parking garage, and then the Canoco gas station at 570 Elm Street. That was lesser quality. And then we also tried to collect video from the Bank of America at 620 Elm Street, and then SNHU Arena across the street, but those last two did not capture anything relevant to this investigation.
Okay, the Southern New Hampshire footage in the Bank of America?
Yes.
Okay. You said 20 Old Granite Street. Is that the Soho Bistro?
Yes, it is.
All right. And just so we're aware, about how many different clips of different angles and with all these different cameras that were out there, about how many clips of video was there?
There was hundreds. We had around 400 from the goat inside alone.
Okay. And then more from all the other establishments outside?
Yes.
And are we talking minutes, hours of recordings?
There's hours of video.
And were you and investigators able to narrow down which clips actually captured what happened before, during, and after the shooting?
Yes, we were.
Right. And I'm not going to obviously take you through every single clip, but I want to talk about some of the ones you said that were more relevant to this case. So
that's
before we
cute.
get going, do you recognize the people in these photographs?
Yes, I do.
And can you just state their identifications and what they're wearing?
Yes, the top of the screen is John DeLee, wearing a very distinct black and white North Face sweatshirt with a winter cap on. Bottom left is Gage Chandler, wearing a 3/4 zip tan or brown sweater. The bottom right is Matthew Saldano. He's wearing a blue sweater with a winter cap.
Thank you. And how about this slide?
Top of the screen will be Timothy Pouliot. He's wearing a black long sleeve shirt. The gold chain has very distinct yellow hair. Bottom left will be Trenton Nash. He's wearing a black jacket with a Bass Pro baseball cap on. And Michael Mendoza is the bottom right, wearing a very distinct black and white robe type sweater garment.
Okay. So,
sorry, for the record, did you have IDs?
Yes, you're.
Folks posted his house on Discord, like a little video. Yes, some really, really nice decorations. House is lit up. Lit up. Looks really nice. He has a really nice Christmas tree too. Oh, that's a gangster thing too, the star. Thing looks like it's touching the ceiling though too. You barely fit that in there.
All right, so are these still images from some of the surveillance that you reviewed?
Yes, these are from inside the goat, Barnville.
So you described their clothing. Were you able to follow these individuals throughout the footage inside the goat, outside the goat, and through the various cameras that you talked about?
Yes, we were. The only thing to note, the bottom two gentlemen, once they're outside, Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Nash both remove their jackets. So you see Mr. Nash on the left has a white shirt underneath, and Mr. Mendoza has a black shirt underneath, and they'll be at some point down the road, minus the jackets and those shirts.
Okay, thank you. Now this is State's Exhibit 33, which has been entered and talked about. Looking past State's Exhibit 33 onto State's Exhibit 44, are these different colors depicting camera angles for cameras that you found within the goat?
Yes, they are.
Okay. We're going to look through some of these just to be clear. We can see what look to be, I guess, angles. Are these exact angles of the cameras?
No, they're approximate. There's a lot of overlapping when you view these different camera angles.
Okay. So there's some overlap. So I just put a yellow X on the screen. So, for example, if we were looking at something that occurred at the yellow X on maiden sidebar 2, that might also be captured by pool table cam.
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. And can you just describe for us, as far as these different cameras, was the footage captured just a one continuous stream, or did it record in clips, in segments?
No, there was no continuous. It was multiple clips. It was kind of chunky, if you will. You get 30 seconds here, a minute there. There was no continuous video collected.
And you were saying different lengths to each clip?
Yes, there was. Yeah, it's a very difficult system to navigate for our detectives. Took us 4 or 5 times to get all the video, but there is multiple chunk clips, I guess is the best way to describe that.
Okay. So let's start with pool table cam. For these interior surveillance cameras, so all 3 of those cameras that we talked about, was there any sound recorded, or is that just video?
Inside the goat is just video. There's no audio.
Okay. So this is State's Exhibit 45. So before I hit play, can you just tell us where we should be looking, help orient us, and describe who we can see in the boxes?
The red box at the top will be John DeLee. At this point in time, he's on the right side of the right box. He's at his back to the camera. You see his black sweatshirt and hat there. Bottom right in the yellow box, you'll see Timothy Pouliot, Trenton Nash, and Michael Mendoza.
and there's also 3 females there. During the investigation, we learned that those are associates of Mr. DeLee, Mr. Soldano, Mr. Chandler. It's going to be Abby Elliott, Olivia Leonardo, and Nicole Bergeron.
And this clip is approximately 35 seconds long. Is there anywhere we should be focusing our attention?
In the middle, at the bottom of the right box, you'll see Matthew Soldano, Paige Chandler behind him. They're going to walk up to John DeLee, and at the end of the clip, John DeLee will walk down to the group in the yellow box and begin speaking with Abby.
So I'm going to play that now.
You focus on the bottom right here. This is their group right here. I think, right? There's John.
So going on to State's Exhibit 46. Same camera angle?
Yes.
Has this been zoomed in?
Yes, it has. It's a close-up.
Okay. And as far as timing of what we're seeing from this clip to the last clip, is this minutes later or is this the next clip?
It's right where we just left off on when John DeLee approaches Abby.
Oh. That's Abby. And here's Tim. Oh, so is that what she told him? Now he's talking to him? Actually seem okay there. Or do they? Do they not? I don't know. Yeah, look how much bigger he is compared to him. Yeah, they shake hands and everything. What? Did he give him a kiss? Like a pop kiss on the cheek?
So going back to our diagram here and moving back over to the maiden sidebar 2, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 47.
Closed in.
Again, similar, can you just help orient us to where we should be looking and what we might see?
Yep, this is so the red box on the bottom or top of the screen. You have Mr. DeLee there with the sweatshirt on.
John.
In the middle of the screen, it's hard to see right now, but you can see Mr. Mendoza's distinct black and white sweater robe.
Detective, not to interrupt you, I apologize. If you want to step down while you're pointing.
Yeah, it might be easier. John DeLee is right here. Matthew Mendoza, Timothy Pouliot are going to be heading up the ramp right here. They'll eventually make their way up over the yellow box. And behind this group of gentlemen right here is the 3 girls right there. And they're going to come up and talk to them for about a minute, minute and a half. Then the 3 girls are going to come back down the ramp, talk to Mr. DeLee, and Matthew Mendoza and Timothy Pouliot are going to end up over here by the bar.
And similarly, about how long after the last clip was this? Are we talking a short time or a long time?
No, short period of time.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to play this clip. Again, no sound, correct?
Yes, there's no audio from inside the goat.
And if you could, Detective, when you see Abby start walking away, if you could just point that out for us.
Okay.
Oh, so that was Abby. Somewhere like right here. I think. Turning up over here, these two.
She's gonna be walking down the ramp right now with two friends close behind.
Oh, so these two girls walk up to him, to John. What they doing? They giving information? And then there's Tim.
All right, so moving forward,
Okay.
just want to ask you, we've watched a couple clips here, and for the jurors' perspective, with the actual exhibits that they have, when they open the clip, it might look a little different as far as the player that's going to launch with it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is this the general format that it will launch with?
Yes, there's a couple different media players I can do on my computer, but this is one format that you might see, yes.
So if you open it with a program called VLC, this might be what they see.
VLC.
Yes.
Okay. And can you just walk us through, there's obviously a call-out box there zooming in. I think the standard play button, does that play the video?
Yes, that's the large one right there on the bottom left.
And then if we move a little bit forward to the right, we have the stop feature, obviously, in the middle of that box.
Yeah, that's square, yes.
And then to the left and right, that skips to the end or the beginning.
Yep, you rewind and fast forward, yes.
Okay. And then the red dot, that's obviously a recording. That's not going to help you play anything. The photo button, that's not going to help you play anything. The A and B button, do you know what that does?
I do not know what that does now.
Neither do I. And that next button, the sideways triangle with the line behind it, is that to go kind of in a frame by frame or slow motion?
Yeah, that would slow it down for you, yes.
Okay. All right.
Chase, is this a good time for you?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
All right, so we will break until 1:30, so we'll see back.
So they're breaking until 1:30. 1:30. Why don't you love me? 1:30.
You can sit down. And so for the class, I'll be back in about 2 minutes, okay?
For the class. Did I tell this video wrong? I don't state tell them. Two.
Wasn't there 72? Yeah, I have it, but not full. Yeah, I'm gonna give it. I was just letting Benjamin know. Oh, this one that one was struck. That's a full. This one's just that deep.
See the Josh Giddey thing? No, I haven't. Oh, no.
I didn't mean to interrupt your exam. It's just I could have done it on cross, but it would have been so confusing to come back later. And say,
No, I just don't want to. I just want to.
No. That's totally. That's perfect the way to do it. Yeah.
Moskowitz, how you doing? Doctor. They come back at 1:30, they said.
On the video.
So I think what I'll do is I'll schedule a stream for 1:30. And we'll just come back then. And I'll chill for a little bit and relax.
So if I miss that, make sure to bring it across. I'll try to do that.
I almost never give questions to the opposite attorney to ask, but it was the right. That was right.
I don't know.
To us?
Josh Giddey. It's Josh Giddey. Oh, this guy. He was like dating a minor or something. Yeah. So I heard the family is not cooperating. The minor's family. They ride or die with this guy. So how old is this guy? That's what I'm wondering. Josh Giddey. Minor family won't cooperate amid police inquiry.
So I'll give you a little background while you're eating and lunch about who I am.
And how old is the girl? That's what I'm wondering too.
My name's William Delker, and I am.
The NBA is looking into the matter. Uh-oh. Okay, so he's 21 years old. The 21-year-old was asked about the claims at practice on Friday, but elected not to speak on it.
TMZ is reporting that Newport Beach Police Department out in California is looking into Josh's situation. Can you confirm that?
I'm just not going to comment on anything as relates to Josh off the court.
Sure.
Sorry to cut you off.
No worries. Just
Okay, and how old is the girl? Rise Above says, can you give a quick recap, Mel, about what happened in this case? Did the short guy die? Or short guy was the gunman? We've been talking about this since yesterday. There's a picture. Basically, they had an altercation in the bar. A couple of altercations in the bar. It seems like they step outside, and there's another altercation. Timmy's friend walks over with pepper spray. Oh, one of the guys walked over and gets punched by John, some other guy. Then another guy tries to walk over and pepper spray him, and he pulls out a gun. And then John starts to walk away, and they start to follow him. And I don't know, somehow John ends up in an alley or something somewhere. And Timmy walks up to him, and Timmy punches John, and John takes out his gun and starts shooting him multiple times. I think 9 times. Kills him. And so John's saying it's self-defense, and the state's saying it's murder. Cavalcante. I can pull up an article later to give you the exact events. There's video of him getting shot too.
I did that for a
Let's see. The first social media post about him effing 17-year-olds was last year. She was 17. 15 is the rumor. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. He was 19 in college and she was 17. Oh. Yeah, John DeLee is 22, which kind of shocked me, too. I was like, 22? He looks like he's 40. He does. Oh, Santa's moving.
With a few narrow exceptions. So we don't do family law cases. Those are a specialty case that are heard in circuit court. We don't do probate cases. Those are things when someone dies and has a will, or if they don't have a will and they have property, that property needs to go to someone.
All right.
After their death.
So we'll be back at 1:30. I'm gonna go rest up and chill for a little bit. Let me set up the stream. I have it ready to go. 1:30. At 1:30 I'll start the stream, and then like I'll be able to be around for like 10 minutes, and I have to head out to pick up the baby, but I'll leave the stream running and I'll come back. Hopefully they bring on something interesting today, interesting witness. That's a hard 22. Bird Bear. Okay. Sounds good. I think for day 2, the only thing you need to watch is the witness, the girl, not the cops. I'm not even interested in the cops. I'm not even interested in the medical examiner, because for me, I know they have to go through the motions, but for me, it's just like, it's not a question of who shot him, you know, and where he was shot. Well, where he was shot might be relevant too, I guess, but, you know, I mean the cops too, I guess, because they're showing like video and stuff, so I guess that's important too. But I just want to see the witnesses, personal witnesses, the people that were there taking a stand. And P. Diddy, man, they're coming hard for P. Diddy. I don't know how many women have come out on P. Diddy now. Coming hard for P. Diddy. He had to step down from Revolt. When it rains, it pours, right? All right, guys, I'll catch you in a bit.